Today's webinar is being recorded, and as Lesley and I were just discussing, we're hoping it will be available at the end of this week sometime, but do keep an eye out for that. And so if you know of anyone that wasn't able to be with us, they certainly will have access to this afterwards. Today, our presenter, Lesley, whom I'll introduce in just a minute, has prepared a PowerPoint presentation and a couple of videos to make this an interactive experience. And you can also download her PowerPoint for yourself by clicking at the right-hand column of your screen. You'll see a Files pod, and under that is Lesley Harrison PowerPoint. So if you click that file name to highlight it, then click Download File, you'll have access to her PowerPoint on your computer. Following today's webinar, we do invite you to take a couple of minutes to give us your feedback. We do have a few short polls to fill out. It just takes a few minutes, and we really encourage that you do that. Today's webinar, we are planning for an hour, but we're also recognizing that you probably have a lot of questions and things that you're bringing to the webinar. So if we finished with the content early and you've received what you needed, feel free to sign off. Otherwise, stay on and we'll continue the conversation. I know it's a little bit different today in that Lesley will be sharing what the vision process is like and inviting your input into that conversation. For those who find the chat pod distracting, feel free to disregard that if you need to. I know some of us struggle with multitasking. It's certainly a lot to try to handle the reading and watching and talking and typing at the same time. So we do acknowledge that. So today we have Lesley with us, and Lesley is the program staff with EDGE, working out of the Manitoba Winnipeg Conference office, and she spends time coordinating a network of coaches and consultants for new ministry development and ministry renewal. I do believe she's also involved with the congregation part-time, but if I have that information incorrect, I know she'll correct me in a moment. This work that she's involved in grew out of the Emerging Spirit program, and I know that Lesley has also done some work with the Winnipeg Presbytery and more in the past has served Saskatchewan and as overseas personnel. So welcome to you, Lesley. We're glad to have you, and I'll turn things over to you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Josephine. Great introduction. I do work with a number of congregations, but not on a regular part-time basis. My full-time work is with EDGE and coordinating the consultants and coaches that we have, doing the various kinds of work and services that we offer for predominantly congregational renewal. But we also have a whole piece of our program devoted to new church development, or what our Anglican friends call fresh expressions. But my work is predominantly with congregations, established congregations that are looking at their vision and their call to do God's mission in the world. And so, for today, our focus is on one of our introductory services of the Vision Day, and I assume that is why most of you have signed up. I'm not sure Josephine mentioned that I'm coming to you live from Winnipeg, and so if you see people dancing in the background today, it's because it's the second day in over 80 days where we've come out from under -30. So we're very excited about that. So if you see people dance by in the window, that will be the case. Looking at the list, there are quite a few of you present with us today that I know, so greetings to you, and glad that you could join us. And I hope that your questions, that we can address the questions that you have and move us forward in a better understanding of what the Vision Day might provide for your congregation or for your community. The presentation today is fairly informational in nature, and so as Josephine mentioned, I've tried a few ways to make it a bit more interactive and to allow for you to get a little bit of a glimpse in a number of places as to what exactly might be what the shape of a vision day might be. So I hope that will be helpful. You can see here on the initial slide, this has been one of our slides that has kind of captured the imagination of what it means to live at the edge of a new day and the edge of God's new day. And that's really how the name EDGE came into being. It's not an acronym. It just refers to our standing between really where the church has come from in its history and experience and where we might be standing poised to find God in a new way at the edge of this day. One of the fundamental shifts that we are seeing at the edge is something that we call or describe as the shift from denominational church to missional church. And a very simple definition of that shift is the denominational church has been understood as something that exists to accomplish something on behalf of God in the world. The missional church we have been defining as a community created and led by the Spirit, called and sent to participate in God's mission in the world. So the language feels like a bit of a subtle change between those two, and yet we know that the actual experience is fairly dramatic. The shift from being able to accomplish something on behalf of God in the world to being called and sent to participate in God's mission in the world. And I think the Vision Day is fundamentally about understanding and experiencing this shift. We've heard repeatedly people tell us that they don't want to come to church in order to get more information about who or how God is in the world, but really they want to come to church to have an experience of God or the divine, or to further connect the experience that they have of God or the divine in the world with that of the faith community. So that also, I think, is one of the fundamental areas where we're experiencing the shift. So with that in mind, I wanted to open our time together with by entering into one of our spiritual practices. We have also heard that in our church, in our United Church, specifically in our congregations, we have intellectualized the faith. And so in being able to return or draw people back to that place of experiencing, knowing the divine, making space and time in their lives to practice what it means to be God's people. With that in mind, I thought that this might be a helpful way for us to begin together. This is a spiritual practice fairly specifically designed for Lent as people reflect on Christ's journey and understanding of being with God in the world. And so this is simply a very, it's a call to enter into the story of Jesus' life, to find where your own story, your own place of connection and understanding of God's presence enters the meta-narrative, the larger story, where and how our story connects and collides with how God is at work in the world. So very simply, I will give you some broad categories or movements through Jesus' life and invite you to think of where and how your own life connects or how that might speak to you. So I'll invite you to just find yourself a comfortable place. This is the benefit of not being on video. You can curl up in the beanbag chair on the floor. Maybe you're already curled up in a comfy chair in your living room. Or find a space in your workplace, in your church, in your office. Ground yourself, feet on the floor. And a nice, easy breath in and out. Thinking of what hope it inspires in you to know that God has walked this journey and God is with us now. Advent. Waiting for the arrival. Are you waiting for the arrival of something? A child. A job. News of some kind. Maybe your kids to move out. Maybe a grandchild to visit. Maybe a community gathering. Waiting. Preparing. Hoping. Birth and new life. And yet not wanted right from the beginning. Birth. Fleeing. Danger. The unknown and the unexpected. Yet always possibility. Another day. Growth and change. You are lost at the festival. Your mother and father have forgotten you. But you are curious, questioning your faith, questioning what it means to live and to journey with God, to be a part of a community that calls you to a deeper understanding of faith. Coming of age, an expanding of knowledge and experience. The waters of the Jordan, baptism, the moment of clarity, that time of calling, when the calling comes into focus, and a commissioning to start a journey of great meaning and possibility. Beginning your ministry and coming home and finding that you are rejected, not understood. People are confused by what you have to offer, some even angry. It's confusing to you too, all of this hope and possibility that lives within you. Where do you go? Who do you connect with? The wedding at Cana, a time of celebration and joy, a time to be present with the community in a new and different way. You are a part of it. You had a hand in it. There is celebration. There is possibility. The ministry continues, and there is a sense of being overwhelmed by the demands for healing, for peace, for knowledge of what is to come, for safety and security. You seek a place to be alone, to pray. And now the crowds are beginning to follow. There is a shift. There is an excitement, authority, influence, responsibility, and abundance. And now your friends don't get it. You've been telling them who you are and what this call, this mission, this ministry is about. And all they can do is question. Some turn away. Some drop off. And now you turn your face to Jerusalem, knowing that the road is and will be difficult. A hard road ahead. Struggle, disconnect, lack of understanding. And now you find yourself denied on every front. Denied by friends and family. Alone on the cross. And the resurrection. The new life yet again. New beginning. Embodiment of the call to ministry, hope, and possibility for a new day. Creator God, we thank you for this story, for this journey of which we are a part. Open our hearts and minds that we will know one another in community, a community of new life, transformation, and resurrection for a new day. Amen. Thank you. As you'll see, as we continue to go through, that kind of spiritual practice or worship is a very large focus of the Vision Day as the experiential piece of for congregations to move and to again share what it feels like to be shifting into a missional understanding of being and doing church. All right, so now we'll launch into the more kind of knowledge and informational piece of the webinar. With EDGE, we have kind of developed a process by way of introducing congregations and ministry to the different services that we offer. And the beginning of the process is with what we've come to call an intake interview or intake assessment interview. And it basically functions as a chance for, usually it's myself, but sometimes it can be one of our consultants, to interact primarily with the what we call the leadership team or a vision team, a group of people that the congregation or pastoral charge has drawn together to do this work, both of interpretation of the mission and vision direction and implementation of some of the strategies and directions that we help to shape with you. And so that group, usually 6 to 8 people, we invite you to find people that we call key influencers from the pastoral charge. So I always smile when I say that word, key influencers, because if you're anything like me, I'm sure a whole variety of images of people come to mind. Key influencers are not always those that move things forward in a positive direction, but they are definitely those people that will have influence in whether, how, and if a change is possible within your congregation. And so it's very helpful to have them at the table at the first steps. And so the intake interview, you can see there the little picture, usually happens in this format. Although we give voice to everybody by using phone connection as well as a video. And so we engage and interact around 3 primary pieces, looking at the history and background of the congregation, the current ministry and mission or identity of the congregation, and I always call it the Simon Cowell moment. What is the dream? What is your dream for your congregation? What would you envision the next 2 or 3 years, how they would unfold in terms of your connections, both with your community of faith, but also with your community around you? So the intake interview takes approximately an hour and a half, and out of that interview, we try to develop a purpose and kind of a purpose and a goal and some goals out of that interview that would kind of shape some of the services that you might engage with EDGE. And so at the end of the interview, a report is generated, and that is fed back to the vision team for your consideration. And within it, we try to outline a number of the various services and or directions that we might take together to achieve some of the goals or objectives that you as a congregation or pastoral charge might have. For some people, that's where the process stops. They engage the interview and we do the assessment together. They receive the report, and that's been enough for them to begin to set some of their own goals and objectives and design a process from that step on. And that's perfectly okay. That's what we hope might be one of the possibilities of the process. Almost always, however, we're now seeing a number of cases where this isn't always the case, but often the first service that we recommend is just this, the Vision Day. And that's why we were hopeful to present a webinar that would allow you to engage it on a number of different levels. So you can see here, this is the purpose and goals that were designed for the Vision Day of Grace United Church. It was just a name that I pulled out to help shape this piece of the process. So the purpose is a day for Grace United Church and people from the community of Grace to come together and explore the shifts in the community that inform the vision and mission direction. So pretty broad. But then this particular community was able to break down the purpose into a number of different goals. So you can see, again, to consider their identity, to explore in what new and different ways, with God's help, they will be able to transform lives in the next 3 to 5 years. I thought that was an interesting way of phrasing what one of their goals was for this beginning place with the Vision Day. And then they had a real focus on governance structure, and so we're hopeful that the afternoon piece of the Vision Day would help them to engage some very specific models around governance and begin to design what would work for them. And then finally, to draft some goals or strategic steps for the next years and how those steps would be put into action. Who should be at a Vision Day? We have begun to recognize in the initial year of EDGE, often it was just number one that you see here, the congregation or members of the pastoral charge that we would encourage to come out to a Vision Day. However, we began to understand more and more as people moved into their community and began to explore what it would mean to engage a mission, perhaps with partners in the community, or where there was a need or a focus, or where they felt called, that it was very helpful if we could have some community stakeholders at the table as well. Now, those community stakeholders we've discovered kind of fall into two categories. Many congregations currently rent space within their building, and sometimes are actively engaged in partnerships with those renters within their space. And so what we've discovered is that if that's the case, it can be very helpful to have invited a number of people that rent space within or have other organizations present within the building to be present at the Vision Day and to help to formulate where you might be going together. The second, I think, is often more informative to the congregation as to what is happening in the community around them. And so that is to invite people who would not normally have a membership or participate in the United Church, but do have a role in the wider community. And so for a number of places that has been town councilors or members of the civic board or community. In a number of cases, the mayor has been invited. When I was doing this presentation in Toronto, there was a lot of giggling about that. But in many of the smaller communities, that is definitely a possibility. Business owners, people who might be engaged